Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
You guys are the hardcore, I have to say. It's been a week. I feel like it's always been a week, but this has really been a week. And I know that we originally said we weren't meeting today, and now we are meeting today. I'm not here on Monday. I realize we've got to meet the head teacher in Yaakov's school on Friday next week. So we can't do Friday next week because I want to be the mother who they say, oh, look, Mrs. Feldman comes along and gets involved. So I'm going to try. I'm trying to start the new year, the new school year with the right sort of attitude to help him to get through year 6. We've just got one more to survive primary school, and then we can say, like, we made it through primary school. So we're almost there. And then obviously because of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, I was thinking, do people want to come on Erev Rosh Hashanah to be inspired? Of course we do. Do I want to teach everyone to be inspired on Erev Rosh Hashanah? Of course we do. But I also have to prepare a fish head and everything else that belong to Rosh Hashanah. And actually, hopefully we'll get the balance right in terms of when we meet. Council Young, never. We're so excited it's nearly Rosh Hashanah. So, as you know, and as there might be someone hiding under a rock somewhere who might not know, but when I spoke at the Chief Rabbi's conference, we spoke about the idea that I was going to, and Elchanan sat there the whole way through with his video camera, as you could see from the video, videoing every word. No other sessions were recorded at the conference, I'll have you know. But I want to give you a little bit of the background to where my session was. So we had a beautiful Rebbetzin half-day mini conference to begin with, and then we all came inside, and actually Elchanan said the opening words. I took a picture. I didn't video him. I'm not quite the PR level maybe that he is, so because he's the head of the RCUS now, the Rabbinical Council, so he opened the conference, which was very special. Then the chief rabbi spoke, which was beautiful, and I'm going to share one of the stories that he shared, because I said on the video, if you watched it, that I was going to share his story, because I collect now Emunah stories. And then the chief rabbi of Israel spoke, he spoke in Hebrew, and I have to be honest, my Hebrew isn't brilliant. It's okay, so I can kind of understand. I'm not brilliant by any stretch of the imagination, but he was so passionate and fascinating, but also so funny. I know that's a really strange thing to say about a chief rabbi. At one point, he was talking about, I don't know, he mentioned something to do with what Israeli society is like, maybe, and something about when Trump came, and that people were asked to take a selfie with him, and then he goes up to Diane Gelly and he goes, Diane Gelly will explain to you later what a selfie is. It was so, that sort of banter, and he kept saying to the chief rabbi, I know I'm speaking too long, but kind of thing, like, I've come all the way from Israel, I am the chief rabbi, it's okay. And it was just such a warm, wonderful, and of course, what message was he sharing? The message that we've been speaking about here for the now, I think it might be week 24, so 24 weeks, about how much the Jewish people love each other and care about each other, and we need to be united. And the change that he saw, people who, when he went to visit down south, very soon after October the 7th, and people who survived in the kibbutzim said, on October the 6th, I would have shunned you. I wouldn't have invited you in. I would have told you can't come anywhere near. He's like, now give me a big hug. I want a big hug. That's the feeling. And I know that the media tries to tell us that that's not the feeling, and that is the feeling. We're fighting. We said siblings fight, right? We've had the summer holidays. Boy, do siblings fight sometimes. We always say it's time for everyone to go back to school, right? Siblings bicker. It's what we do. Even so, I was, as you know, please God, the book's going to the printer by 12 o'clock today, and then I will sleep very well this evening. But last night till 4 in the morning, my sister was helping me because she's a graphic designer, and I'd obviously left everything way too last minute. And thank God it's looking really beautiful. But how to get in all the dedications, this group's amazing. So many people wanted to dedicate, how to make it look nice, how to include the different things. And please God, on Rosh Hashanah, you'll see something that we should all be really proud of, because it's not my book, it's all of our books, and everyone who took a part, and whether your letter is included or whether it isn't included, your voice is in there. This is our group's voice. So anyway, and my sister is amazing, and she drives me mad too. It's okay. That's what siblings do. So when we're family, we're family. And that really was his message. Then there was a 15-minute slot, because she had to run off to a different conference, by Aliza Ben Shalom. Does anyone know who that is? No. So she is a Netflix sensation. She ran the Jewish Matchmaker Netflix.
Yes,
A few
yes,
people are nodding now. Yeah. Very loud, passionate, enthusiastic about everything in life. Made to perform. She does live shows in front of hundreds of people. Please God, the chief rabbi is going to bring her over to do a live show. It will be so exciting. It's amazing, wonderful. She spoke for 15 minutes, blew us all away, left the room because she has an Uber waiting. And then it was my turn. So to say that I was scared means nothing at all. And yeah, you can't imagine. And I had so beautifully friends who came specially. It was at 4:30. That is the worst time in the day if you have young children in school. Some of my friends came specially just to be able to support me and to hear me. It was really wonderful. But there weren't many Rebbetzins there because it's school pickup time and many of them needed to go to school pickup. So I stood there in front of a room of many, many, many rabbis. There was one good part. Because the chief rabbi of Israel was there, and because he was there for such a short amount of time, the Dayanim of the London Beth Din, who were sitting up there with the chief rabbi, went out to have a quick meeting with him. Phew, at least I didn't have all the Dayanim. Mind you, the chief rabbi was there. But really, why would I do something like this? This is beyond my comfort zone. Like I've shared with you so many times, standing in front of Shul. Okay, so I'm getting better at it, but really at a conference. So it's not just because Elchanan told the chief rabbi that this was the best idea, but it was really because the message and what we're sharing is too important not to share. And it's too important not to be able to say to all of our communities that every community has people who have those voices to be able to share with their community and to inspire each other. We are so blessed with a rabbinate who is inspirational, but actually what makes this group so special is what I read out from other people. It's the inspiration that's in this room and beyond this room, because it's not just people who are here. And please God, when the book goes out, maybe we'll get emails from people who aren't in the room, maybe aren't even in our community, and that can continue to inspire us as well. And that's amazing. But to stand in front of a room full of very, very religious, mainly men, and talk about the fact that I struggle with faith wasn't easy. I didn't go into as much detail as I had in this room. So I did say to Elchanan afterwards, I was like, I wasn't that comfortable to be that vulnerable, but I did talk about the idea of being vulnerable. But what was interesting was I had a very mixed response afterwards. Everyone was so inspired. It did make me laugh when, not many, but a few of the rabbis said, I really think my wife should do this in the community. And I hadn't specifically said, you can all do this. It doesn't have to be the Rebbetzin. Like, they do enough. They work hard enough. Rabbis, all Rebbetzins can run this. But a few people came up to me to almost share with me chizuk, inspiration, to kind of help me, because I had been open with the fact that I struggle, which is beautiful, because that's what rabbis and rebbetzins traditionally do, is we can't help ourselves. We want to teach people. We want to strengthen people. All of us do that, right? You want to give someone something that's going to help, try to help them feel better. And then there were some people who were honest and open and said, like, you're so right. You named it. You said it. It's okay. Like, we are sometimes put on pedestals. And what I did share, as you heard in the talk, but what is really true is, as many times as I say that I struggle with faith, people are always going to come back and say, yeah, but you have the answers. I don't have the answers. But I do want to visit back to an idea that we've shared, and that through writing the book, actually, it was so wonderful to relook at what we've spoken about and realize that sometimes we touched on things, but actually to talk about them in more detail, or to dive into them in a deeper way than we had before, sometimes has so much more power and meaning. So one of the things that we had shared was this idea of the rope that was shaking vigorously. And because of the book, I wanted to research who had said that. And actually it was the Chafetz Chaim, who lived in Radin in Poland, who died in 1933. So he was beginning to see, he was in his 90s, I believe. He was beginning to see the winds of change. You read, 1933, you could feel it. You could feel that something very big was happening. And we don't believe that even very great people are prophets, but he definitely was tuned in with what was going on in the world. But he spoke, and the Jewish world leaned on him. They relied on him. And he spoke about the idea that towards the end of time, Hashem is going to take, as if a rope is holding onto a rope, and is going to vigorously shake it. When I was looking for an image to put on social media today, actually, there's a great picture when, you know, people do workouts and they take these heavy ropes and they're doing like this, you know, so you've got that image of someone really shaking and shaking and shaking a rope, and everyone's holding onto this rope, and it shakes harder and harder, and it's harder to hold on when a rope is really shaking. And isn't that what we're all feeling? It's harder and harder to hold on. And one of the sessions at the conference, we were talking about Israel and how people are feeling about it. And the Rebbetzins conversation, I don't know what direction, there were 4 groups. So our group was veering toward the, like, do we stay, do we go conversation, how we're feeling about what's going on in this country and around the world, where do we go if we go, needing to have a plan, all the kind of things that we've touched on on this group. And one of the and it was also talking about this idea of, you know, people were sharing that some people in our community, some people's children in our community have very pro-Palestinian, anti-Israel views, and we have to be able to hold those as well, especially the younger people. You know, we hear about this people struggling in university because of the way they're being treated because of being Jewish, but equally there are Jewish people who are in university or elsewhere who are buying into the liberal, pro-Palestinian, understandably, right? Look at the BBC, look at Sky News, look at anywhere. It is understandable. It just depends what news you're being fed. But anyway, so we were talking about this idea, and one of the Rebbetzins quoted this idea of the rope that's shaking, and she said she felt like it's sifting out who's on side and who's not. And one of the things that I shared was, I don't think we're saying who's supporting Israel and who isn't, because I don't believe that everyone who's anti is wrong and everyone who's pro is right, and it's so much more complex than that. It's who's holding on to Jewish values, who's being true to what it means to be a Jew, and having different opinions is okay. We also heard from Daniel Taub, who's coming on Sunday, who was amazing. I know he was a diplomat, so he knows how to have a good disagreement. But it was so refreshing to hear from someone about the importance to listening to people whose views you don't agree with, and how can you have a conversation with someone like that? And someone shared very vulnerably that one of their family members has very, very strong views that are completely opposite to other members of their family who are in Israel, who are serving. You know, you had the whole spectrum in that room. Afterwards, I spoke to my friends who talked about this rope that was being shaken, and I said to her that really what I was realizing over the conference is sometimes when I feel like I can't hold on to that rope, all I need to do is to hold on to someone else who's holding on to the rope. Elchonen's shared before, but there's this Holocaust story about the Plucking Rebbe, a Hasidic Rebbe, that was the Nazis had taken them from the concentration camp, and they had to dig a big pit, and they had to jump over this pit, and it wasn't humanly possible to jump over this pit. And the Plucking Rebbe is standing next to a completely secular Jew who's an atheist who doesn't believe. We don't believe in atheists. It's fine. They can say they're atheists. It's all right. But standing next to the atheist and saying to the Plucking Rebbe, like, that's it. You know, we're going to die. We're not going to make it across. The Plucking Rebbe said, we're going to try. We'll do our best. We'll jump and we'll try. That's all we can do. And the Plucking Rebbe jumps, and miracles, real miracle. These are people who hadn't eaten. You know, he makes it to the other side, and he looks next to him, and the so-called atheist is standing next to him as well. And the atheist says to the Plucking Rebbe, "How did you make it across?" So he said that I held on to my ancestors' coattails. Yeah, it was fine. I couldn't get across. All I needed to do was hold on to them. They can make it across. So I held on to their coattails and I made it across. But then he looks to the man and he says, "But how could you get across?" So he said, "I just held on to you." And to me, that's what it is. It's just whenever we're feeling that I just don't have that faith. And I think that's what this group is. Because some of the letters that we read out are about people who have so much faith. And I think sometimes the privilege of being a Rebbetzin is I know some things in people's lives that other people don't. And I know that sitting in this room Are people that have faith that, you know, I can't reach up to their toes. You know, honestly, there are people here who go through things that brings them closer and makes them come more and makes them more involved and makes them have more faith. And I am in awe of, but it's okay because I can hold on to all of you. And when you're not feeling fine and you're not feeling strong and you're not feeling faith, it's okay. You can hold on to me or each other or someone else. And that's why I love this conference, was about hearing from other people and saying, okay, so I can hold on to them. I'm going to tell you the chief rabbi story because I promised I would, and I'll forget otherwise. But then I also want to tell you about something that happened in the Rebbetzins part of the program. So the chief rabbi was speaking, and he was talking about how incredible our Jewish people are. And I think that's one of the threads that's come through so much, even if we question, even if we're not sure, even if we feel like we don't grasp Hashem or connect to him or have faith in him. What an amazing people we're part of, right? We keep coming back to what an amazing people we're part of. So as many of you will know, the chief rabbi and Valerie were stuck in Israel, not stuck because you are where you're meant to be, but they were in Israel when the war with Iran broke out, those 12 days, and they couldn't get home till it was over. And he happened to be staying with one of his sons. So as you know, it was Friday, right? Late Thursday night. Remember, our Reuben was preparing for his special weekend, which he did go to. He took the food out the freezer. It was great. He schlepped it all up north with him. Had a great time a few weeks later. But so it was Friday. He said that they were in the shelter a few times that night. And then at one point, his son went upstairs. He said that he got a message. He went upstairs. He came down in his uniform. And he blessed his children because it was Shabbat. He gave them the blessing for Shabbat. And the chief rabbi blessed his son. And he said, being there for that, like his son obviously has been going in and out, but to actually be there when that was happening made it more real and so emotional. And then off his son went to fight for our people, you know, just before Shabbat. And you had a mother with, I can't remember, 5 or 6 children. It was great because the grandparents were there, but to help her out. But normally they're not, right? And most people don't have that. And I don't know how many times he's been in and out and in and out. And that's just life. And then what he said was for the next 12 days, it was COVID school, right? Zoom, because the kids can't go to school. So they were sitting on Zoom. And this is where he shared, I mean, obviously his son going to fight and his wife being okay. And he said, you know, life still goes on. You still have kids who have the flu and need to go to the dentist and like these sheroes, these superhero women who are looking after their families while their husbands are fighting for nearly 2 years, young families. And so anyway, so he happened to be in the room listening while his 8-year-old granddaughter was on Zoom school. And he shared how incredible her teacher was. So they davened together beautifully, all singing over Zoom, really lovely. And then she went round and she asked every single one of the 32 children on the screen how they are, how they're doing, if their Abba's home or not, how their mother's managing, what's going on with them, how they're feeling, if they're free. You just think, like, who is like our people? Who is like our people? We care so much. And the chief rabbi shared how these little 8-year-old little girls were sharing stories of faith. That's what that's in their genes, that's their DNA, that's the stories they're sharing. And these are kids who have suffered, and there's kids who are going through tough times and running to bomb shelters and fathers away fighting and God forbid worse as well. Just amazing. Yes, please, Sally.
I'm a very close friend who has a son who's working on a full-time child up there in Israel, and she was stuck there when the Iran war broke out, and she was living in a flat. She borrowed some cousins, so she was on her own, and she had her own shelter. But she said the camaraderie and the community came together when she was in that shelter. The way that people were messaging, "Are you all right?" She said she's never been closer to making Aliyah than she was during that time. even though it took her forever to get back, I think it was just all very fraught. I mean, she was quite traumatized, I think, when she got back. But she said she's never experienced such an amazing feeling of her community. Everybody.
And isn't that amazing? And isn't it what we see is sometimes it's the hard times that push us closer and closer. I can't remember which of the speakers said it. I can't remember. One of the speakers spoke about this idea of, you know, your moral dilemma. Do you run down from the shelter down from your flat into the Ma'amad with your wife and children and look after them? Or do you go next door to the 85-year-old lady who isn't able to make the stairs and just sit with her while the siren goes to make sure she's okay? Like, these are the sort of questions that the Jewish people ask themselves. This is the nation we belong to. And it doesn't matter if the world wants to destroy us, but how lucky are we that we belong to such an incredible people?
That happened last week, about shooting in Jerusalem.
Yeah.
There's a video of the taxi driver.
Yes.
An 85-year-old woman, and he stayed with her. Amazing.
So I have to tell you, Lawrence and Stella came to my office after last week's session and shared with me. I hadn't seen the news. I don't know if other people had before our session. I hadn't seen the news, and I felt like on Monday, I gave a Emunah class, and we shared such beautiful ideas. And then when I heard the news, I was shaken and I was struggling to hold on. Our closest neighbors and friends from Israel had moved to Ramat. And it wasn't till probably 11:30 that night that I could turn on the news and check. And when I did turn on, and I knew that 6 people had been killed, I couldn't look. I didn't want to see, God forbid. And that's a family I think I've already shared. They've lost, I think, 1 or maybe even 2 nephews since in the fighting. But I didn't want to turn on the news. I didn't want to see it. And once I did turn on, and then I realized, but you know what? These are 6 people who are also my friends and family. I didn't know them before their pictures were up. I didn't know the 4 soldiers before we saw the pictures, but now we know them. Now we know them. I don't know if people heard the story of, I'm sorry, I forgot his name, but one of the people. So first of all, that bus stop is like Grand Central Station. People are coming and going the whole time. My friend Sarah from Charlotte, who many of you met, I spoke to her yesterday, and she said her grandson waits at that bus stop every morning, and the first thing the yeshiva did was told them to all call their families to let them know that they were okay. So she got a message straight away to say her grandson was okay, but all the time people are coming and going from that place. And even I saw a picture 4 hours later, everyone was back there. Like, that is Israel. We get on with it. Tragedy happens. We weep and we get on with life. But someone had pulled up to the bus stop with an empty car and offered 4 of the men rides who needed to get to Yerushalayim. And one of the rabbis got in the car, and then someone else came running up to the car and said, I really need to get to Shaare Tzedek Hospital. And the rabbi got out of the car and gave his seat to another person, and he was one of the 6 that lost his life. And there is something so heartbreaking and beautiful at the same time when you think about the fact that the last thing that this man did was such a mitzvah. He didn't know by giving him a lift that he was giving up his life. He didn't know that, but by giving up his seat. And I don't know what you do with something like that. You know, we can say you are where you're meant to be, and we can say it when we're on, something beautifully inspiring when we're on holiday and when something wonderful happens. And you're also where you're meant to be when something else happens. And that's hard. That's hard.
I may say so. We discuss these things every week, where we think about doing good deeds so that we will have a better life, or whatever. We do the good deeds, not for the reward, but we do the good deeds. And yet this man did a good deed, and within a few minutes was gone. No, if that's faith, I'm not sure.
So I think that sounds like you're challenging Hashem and saying, I don't understand how you're running the world. Yeah, yeah. Isn't that what we do? How are you running the world?
Yes.
But maybe either what we can say is that randomly 6 people's lives were taken by this evil person, and that evil person is in control. Or what we can say is that Hashem is in control of the world. He loves us all very much, and he decided that those 6 people were meant to meet their maker at that point through the way that they did.
It doesn't make sense. It's not meant to make sense.
Does it make
doesn't.
more sense to say that God's not in control and the terrorist is? Which one? To say that the terrorists isn't, that Hashem's in control?
Yeah.
So it's nicer to think that that man was meant to die, or was meant to be part of that shooting, and he got to die having just done a beautiful mitzvah, but it's hard. Or even if you do a mitzvah, it doesn't help.
But it's like the tree with the branches. Hashem's at the top there, and you've got your roots, and you're moving along. I've got this big mattress thing from the party table, and it was where the branches separate. Would have gone one way or the other.
Yeah. But I think,
Choices are there,
yeah,
but we get,
yeah.
how much are we in control of the choices? I don't know.
So if I was running the world, thank God I'm not running the world, but if I was running the world, if there was a man who did a big mitzvah by letting someone it's a pain waiting for a bus. When you get, I'd spend a lot of time waiting for a bus. It's a pain. And someone offers you a lift is brilliant. Speak to my kid. They stand, any of you might have seen, they stand outside Hadara seeing if they can spot any of you. They'll linger. Just maybe I could get a lift home from Edgeworth to Bushy. They spend their life lingering or calling Malcolm now for a lift. But it's a pain waiting for a bus, and he got a lift. So if I ran the world and you were someone who just gave up your seat in a comfortable car, probably with air conditioning, to get to Jerusalem, to someone who's going to the hospital, what a tzaddik, I'll protect you. That's how I would run the world.
Yes.
Makes sense?
Yes.
So what we're saying is we don't understand how Hashem runs the world. Well done. If we understood how Hashem runs the world, then I could get the job. If it was that simple, I could run the world.
Yeah, but you're a bit busy. Yeah.
I am a bit busy. I don't think I'd be very good at running. So is that what we're saying? That we think that Hashem's doing such a poor... Oh no, you're saying world leaders, yeah. No, but let's think about it though. Let's think about the mess. Like we talk so often about this, the mess that we're in this world. Maybe that's what we should do. Maybe someone else needs to be in charge. That's not what we say.
Every country's got lunatics.
Yeah, but who's letting those lunatics be in charge? Hashem. Or you're saying, and this is much scarier to me, you're saying God created the world. Yeah, I believe that. But now he's left it up to lunatics, which is mankind. And that is much scarier.
Yeah, but we voted them in. So I mean, as well.
So it's up to us.
Well,
It's on
The
us.
whole thing about free choice and
Yeah.
predestination, which
Yeah.
I'm not reconciled at all.
Right.
You know, we have free choice. So we voted. You know, so the Americans voted Trump.
Yeah.
But it's the we. They're not all the we. Some of them aren't the we.
Yeah, but enough of us are. But one of the Torah teachings that I understand is that people have free choice, that we know, but world leaders don't have free choice in the same way that we do. So they might have free choice on their personal decisions. They don't have free choice on the way that they decide, to push the button or not, or whatever other crazy things are going on in the world. But that's really interesting, because what that's saying is, yes, we all have free choice. Hashem knows what we're going to choose, but on a mini scale, it's okay if I choose to go that way rather than that way, or on the tree that I choose that branch rather than that branch. But if you're talking about someone who is determining world history, Hashem has a path, Hashem has a course. It can't go off that course because it's all Hashem's course. So if a world leader is making crazy decisions, statements, actions, I'm thinking about World War II level actions, either what we're saying is Hashem is allowing that person to just do whatever they want and isn't involved, and it's up to them, and I put my hands up and it's fine. I'm just watching. Hashem's just watching us, and yeah, look, the world's crazy, people are crazy. Or Hashem is in control. Hashem is allowing them to do evil in the world for whatever reason that we obviously don't understand. What sits more comfortably? That's what's interesting. Is it easier to say Hashem's not in control and people do evil things? Let's do a show of hands. Yeah, you don't have to share if you don't want. I've been very vulnerable this week. It's your turn now. If you want to share, what sits more comfortably? So the choice is either that Hashem lets go and lets people, including world leaders, do whatever they want, and he just watches, or Hashem is in control and he is allowing or making deciding that evil exists where it exists. The first option, who thinks that the first option is more comfortable, that Hashem isn't in control, he's watching, and he allows world leaders and people to do whatever they want, a terrorist to attack people? You like that one better?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Do you prefer that? We're not sure. It's okay, you're allowed to not know. Okay, I'll do it not, I'll do it don't know. You do prefer that?
It's just given choice to man, we have choice to be good or evil.
Right.
But then you ask the question why.
So then what we're saying is,
Because they're two sides.
so then what we're saying, and then what we're saying is that the people, I'm choosing the Ramot example because it just struck so close to home. But you know, then we say that the people who were killed at the Ramot bus station was chance. God didn't want that to be the end of their life, but they happened to be standing there and the terrorists happened to shoot the bullets at them and not at the person next to them. And these are, what I want to be clear is that these are Jewish philosophical points of view. There's not, this is the Jewish way and that's not the Jewish. Both are things that are argued by Jewish philosophers. Yeah.
Say that I know. Also, in the world, if there's no evil, then there can be no good. The world was good, good wouldn't really exist, and then we wouldn't learn, we wouldn't
Yeah. And you know, when Hashem made the world, exactly, thank you, that he gave us choice so that we could choose good, because if he didn't and we just got everything, like if you just lived in a fairy tale world, wouldn't that be lovely for a bit? It's like when you go on holiday. Yes, please, right? For sure. It's like when you go on holiday and like it's wonderful to do nothing. I always say it's wonderful to do nothing, but then after a point it's like, okay, I need a book to read, you know, something. Or maybe some people would really spend 4 months doing absolutely nothing. I don't think so. You need to kind of feel like you're earning it, and the fact that evil exists means that you're choosing good. I agree with you. Yeah.
I think something terrible happened this week with Charlie Kirk. I've been following Charlie Kirk since 2015, before Trump's first, he was only 21. He's really, you spoke before about, you know, being able to talk to people who've got other points. He absolutely did that. And he absolutely went into the lion's den in campuses, and he would speak to people with crazy views who would like shriek in his face. He was always calm, he was always measured. I never saw him lose any of it. He was devout Christian, but he knew a lot about Judaism, he knew it properly, but he knows that Christianity follows Judaism. He knows the difference between Tanakh and Talmud, all that stuff, really knows it. And you know, he was killed this week, which is such a terrible thing. But I can see some possible good because people are opening their eyes, and lots of things I'm reading about people saying this is such a terrible thing and life has got to change. You know, so that in a way you can see maybe there's the hand of Shem in that to make people realize. I don't know, that's like making them a martyr. I'm just saying, like, for me, it was very personal and it was a terrible, terrible thing.
Yeah. Thank you, David. And I didn't follow him and I didn't know. My father told me, actually, he was talking about him on Shabbos last week. And he was shaken.
I was watching, I would say to you, I've watched a video of his at least once a week for the last 10 years.
But I think, you know, to have someone who is such a friend of ours, we've spoken about this before, that how unbelievably comforting it is to have somebody who cares about us as a people and knows the truth and speaks the truth. And, you know, you don't need to be Jewish to be great. And I didn't know him, but it sounds like he really was a great person. And that voice of truth out there, the evil is trying to overtake that. But going back to Rachel's point, if there wasn't if there wasn't evil in the world, then the good voice like his, maybe you wouldn't, like everyone would just be talking good. So the reason that you see that he shone and that he stood out and that you've been listening to him for 10 years is because there is such filth out there that the light comes through. So the contrast does help us. It's a little bit, I'm just thinking like, it's a little bit like if there was only white. So like if you don't see the world in color, there's nothing to compare it to.
Like I see the world as being overtaken by black, by darkness. So it's very depressing, but it's escalating in our government now. From secretary, which is really scary. And it's hard finding such a speckle of light. And what I think is we really need to look for in light. Because otherwise it's kind of getting covered. Really, it's depressing.
Yeah. And I think, again, that's why we need to come together and talk about positive things. And, you know, there was a reason I couldn't switch on the news till 11 o'clock at night. And I'd just been talking about faith. So my cup should have been full. I should have been fine, okay? I trust in Hashem. I believe that whoever's meant to have been there was there. Whatever happened, happened. I really struggled. I just didn't want it to be someone I knew. I just didn't want it. I was at capacity. And then Hashem showed me that you're going to have to sit and cry for these 6 too now. There is so much darkness out there. And there is so much light if we look for it. And maybe, like we're saying, the darkness helps us see the light more. You know, David, if this wouldn't have happened, I'm not sure how many, obviously he had lots of followers. I wouldn't have known much about him. So now I will learn more.
What's scary is he was a pretty unique guy. Can't see someone else coming and doing what he did, because he did it so good.
Yeah. And we're going to come back to then that question of, is this Hashem's plan? It's fine to say it's Hashem's plan when the miracles happen and when everything turns out well. Can we say that it's Hashem's plan when the bad things happen? And if we don't think it's Hashem's plan, then what we're saying is Hashem's not running the world. So I want to ask from the other point. First of all, who's the I don't knows? So we've had a few people saying that they feel that Hashem is watching, but allowing us to get on with this and make our mistakes. We've got how many I don't knows? So we've got quite a few I don't knows. And how many people, I don't know, you like that? I don't know. It's a great place to be. And how many people want to say that they believe that Hashem is running the world and decides exactly whose time is when it's their time? Yeah. Halfway. You can be in all three. And they're all okay, right? They're all okay.
One of the things that came up, one of the things is that
Yeah. And we've shared this before, but it's one of my favorites, not because it's lovely and nice, but one of my most powerful Holocaust stories is about Elie Wiesel at the end of the war in the camps, and they gather together a bet din to judge Hashem, right? Is God guilty? And the bet din decide, is God guilty? What do you think? Yes. God allowed 6 million of our brothers and sisters to be killed. God is guilty. They found him guilty. And then they davened Mary.
I think you need the benefit of hindsight. So when you're in the middle of something, you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. Maybe if you have the privilege of being able to look back, then you might be able to see things in a different perspective. Yeah. I think when you're in the middle of it, I think it's really
100%. And I think, yes.
What I read that if God's plan for the world is like a big jigsaw, what we're seeing is maybe one piece of the puzzle, right? Or maybe 2 pieces. If you just were to pick up one piece of the jigsaw, it just looks like enough. Just don't understand it. But it's part of a bigger thing which you just don't understand. But it all comes together in the end. And the other thing is, if like an alien came to this world and saw like a woman in labour about to give birth, you think that she's dying, pain, screaming, and maybe blood or whatever. But actually, something very beautiful comes out. Yeah. So what we're seeing is just one moment in the grand scheme of things, and it's really hard to understand. But hopefully, it's part of a bigger thing.
Thank you. And again, from the book, we've been like reviewing some of the ideas that I don't think we spent long enough on. But there's I think it's Rabbi Torchinsky. So again, now I know because I had to check the sources. But in a book called Gesher HaChaim, which is talking about Gesher is the bridge of Chaim, of life. So it's talking about that bridge that takes us from this world to the next. It's very deep Kabbalistic. I haven't learned it, but very deep Kabbalistic ideas, understanding what that transition's like. And he actually describes twins in the womb. And he talks about the idea that you have these twins in the womb, and one brother says, it's so warm, life is perfect, we want to stay here forever. And then suddenly something's happening and change is occurring. And this brother is panicking away. What's going to be? It's the end of the world. Terrible things are happening. He can hear screaming. There's pain, right? There's what's happening. And then suddenly his brother disappears. And he thinks that the most terrible things happened. It's the end, right? His brother's gone. And then through the continuation of labor, he's born and suddenly he hears Mazel Tov. And he realizes that what felt like the worst thing in the world, exactly as you described, was birth. And that's the way that they describe that this idea that describes what death is going to feel like. If we can think of it like that, what's to be afraid of? It's such a normal thing to fear death, but what's to be afraid of? But we're human beings and we do fear, but such a beautiful parable, such a beautiful understanding. And at the same time, I think that while we're going through things, so one of the things that's interesting, whenever we do a Poland trip and we talk about the Holocaust, the reason we hold on to our Israeli flags, I think is a bit like what you were saying, Sally, is look, the state of Israel came from that. But what we're not ever saying is the reason the Holocaust happened, or now we understand why the Holocaust happened, or it's okay that the Holocaust happened, or it's okay that, none of that. The Holocaust happened and that allowed the state of Israel to be born. Does that mean that we answered the question of why did the Holocaust happen? No. So when you're talking about even that puzzle piece or looking at what's going on in history, I don't even think that sometimes we're talking about 2 years later and it's a lovely story and you find out why something that looked like it was bad is now good, how wonderful, great. Sometimes in our lifetime, we won't understand how what happened was great. One of the speakers at the conference, her name is Rebbetzin Aviva Feiner. And her and her husband are the Rabbi and Rebbetzin of the White Shul in Far Rockaway, a wonderful Jewish community in New York. Anyone been there? Yeah. So I remember the Feiners from Israel, and she spoke at the Rebbetzin session. I originally thought she was going to be staying. She did I think they've put her like in lots of different places speaking throughout the day, not at the conference, but at different places. So she wasn't there for my session, but if she would have been, one of the things that I would have wanted to say was when I talk about holding onto the rope and not being able to hold onto the rope, she is there's many people in this room and beyond in our community who I would hold on to when I feel like I can't hold on. But she is one of those people who is holding onto that rope, and I'd like to hold on to her. So the Feiners lived in Israel, and they went through 12 years of infertility, and finally had a beautiful baby boy. And within a few hours of his birth, he had a severe brain injury. The reason that I remember this is because we were in Israel at the time. I remember going to the Neve campus in Jerusalem. We were living in Ramat Eshkol. I remember taking a cab to the Neve campus and hearing Aviva speak after her baby was just a few days old, begging all of us to pray for her little boy because he was in such critical condition, I think for the first 6 months of his life. I also remember going to his Brit, which was in the Great Synagogue. Hundreds of people were there. Because we'd all been praying for this little boy, and they called him after the Chazon Ish, I think a very great rabbi. But this little boy is 17 and he can't speak and he can't walk and he's in a wheelchair and he needs to be taken care of. And if anybody has the right to say it's not fair, it's the finers. And that's not what they talk about at all. And her connection to Hashem is something that I am jealous of. You're allowed to be, did you know this? You're not allowed to be jealous of people's things, but you're allowed to be jealous of their Torah learning. You're allowed to be jealous of their faith. So I'm allowed to say that's something that I'm jealous of, but it's okay because I'll just hold on to her. And she spoke to us and she inspired us. And one of the things that she shared with us was someone that she knew who was struggling, I think with infertility, and was complaining about it, and was complaining and saying that it's not fair that it's not fair that, you know, my sister who has, thank God, the family and a beautiful house and a wonderful job, and it's not fair that Chani has all of that. Why does Chani have that? And she said at one point, she just, you know, she turned to her and she said, do you want to be married to Chaim? That's Chani's husband. And she goes, no. So she said, you can't complain that she has all those things, because if you want her life, you have to be married to her husband. You have to have everything from her life, right? You can't just have the bits from someone else's life that you like. If you want someone else's life, you need all of it. And what if we can do well is we can say, I have some tough things in my life. Other people have other tough things in life. But actually, how lucky am I that this is the challenge that I was born with? How lucky am I that this is the challenge that I live in? You know, there's some crazy stuff going on in this country. There's some crazy, scary stuff that's going on in this country. We can pick up and move if we want to, anyone who wants to, and you should have a plan. It's not a bad thing to have a plan. If you needed to, that we could. The chief rabbi was very clear that this is not the time. Nobody should be leaving this country out of fear. I know that he is very connected, as we all know, to Israel. I'm sure that he will one day make Aliyah. His family lives there, or some of his family lives there. You know, he's always been very connected, as many of us are, to Israel. But this isn't a time to run away. That's not what we're talking about. You know, God forbid, if there was widespread violence on the street, then there's a different question, right? But to have a plan is not a bad thing. But at the same time, to realize the life that I was born into means that in 2025, in September 2025, I am meant to be in Bushy, in this room with you now. And that's okay. And it's the same idea of choosing. Do I want to say, I wish that, you know, we weren't the family that left Israel and came here. I wish that we lived in Israel and still were there like some of our friends. I wish that we had that life. Well, then I have to have all the bits of that life. But how blessed am I to have this life that I have here right now? And the people who are in France have to say the same things to themselves, to them as well. How blessed am I that this is the place that I'm living in, that this is the direction that my life took me in. It's not saying that you can't make a change. And anyone who makes a change, it needs to come from the right place. And if there is a time where we need to do that, we will do that. But to know that right now, this is someone actually in the Rebbetzin session that we had near the end, they shared this phrase that I'm so grateful that this is the shlichut that my life sent me on. This is the shlichut, is like when you go out to do your mission. How lucky are we that this is the mission that our life put us on? This is what we're meant to be doing in life. This is where we're meant to be. We come back to that same phrase, right? We are where we're meant to be, the place where you belong. That's here right now. Can that change? We've moved houses, I think. I used to say it was 12 times in 13 years, but I think now I can say it's 12 times in 20 years. We've actually stayed in one place for a little bit. That's a lot of times to move. And each time you're meant to be where you're meant to be. It's okay. We're not saying you can't move. You can move, but in a sensible way. You know, when we say, look, the world is a narrow bridge and we don't need to be afraid. It is scary. We're not saying the world's not scary. It is. There's frightening things happening.
Trouble is, we remember the 1930s or should remain.
You're not that old. I know.
You can remain because you've
I
done
know.
it, and you've heard
It's
it.
in, you know, I spoke
Did
about.
did those poor people in Germany think as we are thinking now? And when they finally decided to go, it's too late.
Was it too late?
Can I say, you don't have to go that far back, because my parents are from Iraq.
Yes.
And in the 50s, you know, the 50s, they had to, people just locked up their houses and left.
Yeah.
And they said they were going on holiday and they ordered just escape. So you don't, it was my
Yeah.
parents' friends,
Yeah.
my parents' generation. You don't have to go as far back as the politics. And so I'm ready, I have that in my mind. I may have to leave at any time. I know that's sad, but.
But it's in our DNA. It's who we are. Yeah.
Here.
Yeah.
And I feel that we are.
Yeah.
that's the
100%.
journey here.
Yeah, 100%. And actually, you know, one of the things with Yaakov, the father of the Jewish people, the end of his life, it said when he went down to Egypt, he kind of was there and he was happy being there. It's not the way of a Jew, and he was punished for that. He lived a shorter life. You're not meant to be stuck where you are, right? Even they talk about when you build a shul, please God, speedily in our days. But when you build a shul, you don't need to build, or when you build a house, it doesn't need to last forever. We're not going to be here forever. We move. You know, if you ever go to a community, I know in like, I forgot which area. Yeah, I guess the Lower East Side in Brooklyn, we sometimes drive past it. There's very few Jews, if any, living there now, but they had shuls there. And the buildings are now taken over and whatever's happening to them. And same here in the East End. You don't need to build it forever because we move around, right? Who knew the Bushy was going to be the, you know, look at something like St. Petersburg Place. That was the shul, but okay, so now everyone's moved to Bushy. Thank God, it's great for us, right? But we move, and you know what? We'll move on from here as well. It's the Anatevka. It's okay. That's why, you know, so many Jews were in diamonds. That's why so many Jews didn't learn how to play the piano. They played the violin because you can carry the, or the rabbi with a guitar, right? You can carry that with you. It's okay, but it's so part of our DNA. And I do think when we were having this discussion, my comment was with great grandparents who were in that position and were killed. So my grandparents escaped, but my great grandparents didn't. And some of my grandparents' siblings didn't and didn't get out in time. But with all of that thought, you know, my question was, and Lawrence, you're going to look this up for us because I'm sure you've got a book somewhere that says it. In the 1930s, were there chief rabbis who finally changed and said, leave?
Yes, yes, some with insight, especially Lubavitch type rabbis.
New?
So
Lubavitch,
sorry. They saw writing on the wall and trying to get their piece out. And other people in Poland trying to get people out. In Germany.
At what sort of stage though were we talking about?
1930s. And some of the friends like Soda's father. We know somebody from the village where Soda's father came from, Missouri. They were told there's no future here, get out. And they got out.
Yeah. So that, to me, that's quite interesting. Like, it was, if we're talking about what the chief rabbi is saying now, and it's just a question, but what and we have to be careful. We're not in 1930 Germany. We're not. We are not. We're really not. But was there a point where there was enough time when the rabbis were saying everybody leave? I know they were very frightened of America. There wasn't Israel.
No.
Like, so I don't know. And that's what I'm asking you. When they were saying leave, was it too late by that point? Or did they say it to people with enough time? And actually, the truth is, even if we were told, and we're not at that stage, everyone leave, I understand why people might not.
It was too late in that the borders were already shut.
Right.
And they had been shut.
Right.
Ironically, from 1905, when there was the Aliens Act here, which stopped people coming across. And in the 1920s, when there was huge unemployment, depression, whatever, it was very difficult to leave. Yeah. But some people realised what was coming. It was going to be worse. A lot of people went from Germany to Holland.
Yeah.
And they thought they were safe.
Yeah, but it was very different in those days. I mean, my mother came here, and her sister was here, and some of the other people, younger people from her village. My grandparents stayed, but they could only come legally. Yeah. I've got a copy of the letters that my mother got to say that she had a work permit. You couldn't come to the UK unless you had a work permit, then you had a job to go to.
Yeah.
And that's what it was like around the world. So you couldn't just leave.
No.
And my grandparents encouraged my mother and my aunt to go. And they knew that things weren't right. I've got letters I need to get, they're impossible to translate, but one or two that say, I think it was mid-1939, but my grandparents weren't taken until 44. So if I say 42, my great-grandmother, who lived in Czechoslovakia, don't ask about my mother, don't ask about your grandma. We don't know the deal. So they knew what was going on, but they couldn't do anything about it.
Yeah.
So those that they could get out, got out. And the others, they just had to take their chance.
We know the consulate had queues outside every consulate every day for people trying to get out. But the difference is, if we go today, we could sell our houses, take our assets, and go. In Germany or like Iraq, you couldn't take anything. You were destitute.
I go back to the conversation you said you had a few months ago. Like, so do we all need to take whatever saving? I don't know what savings are at the moment in the financial climate of how much my kosher shopping bills are. But whatever savings we do have, do we need to make them liquid? Are we talking about that right now? Do we need to have a plan? These are all very practical questions. But at the end of the day, the reason that I think that this is the conversation we do need to be having is that we need to be holding on to faith, to calm, it's not a contradiction. You can do both. You can think about, if we needed to leave this country, what would we do? And you can hold on to the faith and calm that, please God, things will calm down. Hashem's going to look after us. We're going to be protected. Maybe we could do both. And I say that knowing, like I said, knowing that my great grandfather actually went to Palestine, left his wife with 13 children, maybe, I don't know what, went to Palestine for, I think, 2 years, tried to make money, was so poor that he came back they moved from Poland to Austria and met his end. You know, when we were in Israel, I'm going to end with this, when we were in Israel, one of my favorite things is going into like the bookshop near the bottom of Mea Shearim. It used to be called Manny's. Now I think it's called Arad Sofan, I don't know, but I love walking around there. Just a very cute anecdote. We were with our kids who were dressed in their regular, you know, holiday, bright pink t-shirt, grey shorts, shorts, whatever it was. And as we walked up, so Elchanan had to go somewhere, he dropped us off at the bottom of Mea Shearim, and we walked up right from the bottom, and we look different to people. You know, I think sometimes people think, like, because we're religious, we look exactly the same as all the people who live in Mea Shearim. My boys were not wearing white shirts and black trousers, and you know, I wasn't wearing a very big hat on top of my shaitel, and you know, just wearing black and white, whatever it is, there's a dress code even there that we look slightly different from, which is fine. So as we were walking up, one of the shops we went to, it is called, I can't remember, we went into a shop that sells a sort of Gemara that Shlomo really liked, and we went into the shop with the boys, and you could see them sussing us up in, well, how long, 2.2 seconds it takes to judge someone, and the person asked us, you know, what do you want? Kind of. He wasn't. I'm not judging him. It was funny. It just made me laugh because he obviously thought we were these, you know, chutz la'aretz Jews from the diaspora. Don't know what we're talking about. Like, okay, we're wearing a kippah, but we're not looking for anything real. And Shlomo said to them, "Do you sell individual chapters from the Gemara tractates?" So the guy said, which one are you looking for? So he said to him, he's looking for Ben Sorah or Moreh. Yeah. Sounds pretty frum, right? He knows what he's talking. Ben Sorah or Moreh, that's the Gemara the chapter of Gemara he's looking for in school. So the guy there said, I'm going to get it wrong because I don't know that thing. But he goes, oh, that's in, I don't know, Sanhedrin. And Shlomo goes, no, it's in, and told him the right chapter that it was in. I was like, they didn't have it. They didn't. It was funny. It just made me laugh. But you know, people are people. It's fine, and I love them. But what the bit I wanted to, so we walked a little bit further up, and there's this massive bookshop. And I said each of the kids could get one thing that they wanted. My goodness, what the things that they chose! But it was lovely. And I actually bought 2 books there. One of the books, you can just see my headspace is with you guys wherever we are. I was working on the book. That's all I'm thinking and dreaming. Eating, sleeping not very much sleeping at the moment, but so one of the books was by the Piazetzner Rebbe, who was killed in the Warsaw Ghetto It's his Torah talking about faith in difficult times. I'll let you know when I start reading it. I think it's not going to be the lightest read. And the other one, I bought a present for Elchanan, but again, it's Rabbi Elchanan Wasserman, who Elchanan's name is Elchanan Bunim. He was named after his grandfather and great uncle, but the names together are after Rabbi Elchanan Wasserman, who was a rabbi in Lithuania, Baranovich, I think, a Rosh Yeshiva, big gadol, and they've written his essays about faith, about what's going to happen as we get towards the end of time, etc. And they've compiled them in English in a book, so I bought that for him. What's interesting about Rabbi Elchanan, so the reason that Elchanan's named after him is his grandfather, who was a rabbi in Bayonne, New Jersey, not that dissimilar to this sort of community. When Rabbi Elchanan came to America in the 1930s to collect money for his yeshiva, which is what the Rosh Yeshivas used to do, my Elchanan's grandfather drove him around. It's an honor like you can't imagine. He got to take him around to collect money from his yeshiva. You're talking about one of the greatest rabbis of the generation. And his grandfather remembers, or they talk about, it's spoken about. They remember taking Rabbi Elchanan to the ship and begging him not to go back, begging him to stay. And you know, the idea that a captain doesn't abandon his ship. And those are the questions we even ask ourselves. Let's say we decide that we all should go to Israel. What happens to the people here who can't go? Do we stay with them? We're the community leaders. And these are the sort of conversations that Elchanan's discussed this with his rabbi, with Roberto. It's fascinating times we live in.
Can I ask a short question? I don't want to keep everyone long. I have to, which is an hour. Do the Orthodox
I've got a book to publish.
Do the Orthodox community, say like in Stamford Hill, etc., do they feel the same pressure that we do? Or are they living in a complete bubble where they have their faith, and I understand that, but they don't see what we see?
So I think in Bushi, we live in a bubble too.
Yes, I understand.
Someone was describing, one of the Rebbetzins was describing how she lectures in a place where every laptop that's facing her has a Palestine sign on. Every person is wearing a keffiyeh, and she knows that they are doing that because it's her, and she can't speak freely. I don't see that. I live in Bushi. It's very nice here. Okay, sometimes my kids get shouted at that they're baby killers or to free Palestine. I think even we live in a bubble. Do they live in a bubble? Yes. But at the same time, I don't know if you saw, I think there were 5 incidences in Golders Green this week where feces was put on, but like, seriously.
Yeah.
Seriously. So is it a bubble? Yes. Are they coming? You know what it's like there. You see less of other, but at the same time, what's interesting when we went to Stamford Hill is they do live amongst a broader ethnic mix than we do. So maybe they might not be watching it on their screens, but how accurate is what we're watching on our screens anyway?
Yeah,
so it could be that they're seeing an interaction more than we do. I don't know.
Yes, but do they feel pressure on
To leave?
So not looking after us as it should? Do they feel the pressure
I don't know.
of the marches that go through the streets?
It would be a good question. It would be a good question. I'm going to end here. I think there's a lot to think about. I didn't even get to the emails, but it's okay. We are going to be meeting on, well, not next Friday because I can't do that because I'm going to be a good mummy. So we are going to be meeting, is the following Monday is Erev Rosh Hashanah. I'm running the explanatory service on Rosh Hashanah. You never know, there might be some Emunah stories in there. See what comes up. But we will be the Friday after between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and then also the Monday. So we'll have 2 in a row because we're missing one now. Have a wonderful week, everyone. Have a wonderful Shabbat.